Welcome back to Primary Source China Investment. This is show J2. Although, given our topic this week, maybe it should have been called K2 because the topic is about as insurmountable as K2. Clearly, you can see from peng.guo's background, it's fall in New York and also in Boston, where he is right now. And I wanted to talk this week about climate, emissions, coal, energy, new energy, and on and on and on. Because as we saw this week, news broke that the US and China signed what John Kerry described as a roadmap for our future collaboration. And also Xi and Biden are going to have a call this week. Anybody that knows China or has done business in China knows exactly what this means. But I don't want to start off too negative this week. China and the US are the biggest polluters and also the two biggest fighters of that pollution. Both things can be true.
I think, carbon emission is a big problem. So we all know the future, if it get burned, fossil get burned, that's cause a lot of the pollutions. So people understand this problem, but unfortunately, that's no good way to solve it. That's why trigger the clean energy or renewable energy industry. So I think both countries are pretty much on the same boat to fight for the climate change.
Yeah,
in my understanding, go ahead.
No, I think it's good to just say, like, what is greenhouse gas emission? So, burning coal and other fossil fuels, that's how you get greenhouse gas emissions. And we hear a lot about coal, and that's definitely the largest contributor because so much runs on coal. You want a warm apartment. How about running a steel plant? How about powering all those dazzling lights in Lujiazui? Yeah, it all requires burning all of that coal. And we need to talk about the substitutes. And also, along with the substitutes are the opportunities. And I know China and the US have all been articulating a lot of great things, a lot of headline stuff. Achieve carbon neutrality by 2060, peak carbon by 2030, have renewable energy, 25% of total energy consumption by 2030, reduce carbon intensity, install solar and wind, and on and on and on and on and on. The problem with that is all of these politicians are not going to be around by 2060. So it's easy to say things. It's how do you implement that policy? And then with that policy, how do I align myself with the investment thesis?
I think, in my understanding, maybe Western people underestimate China new energy industry. So it's not just to solve the climate problem. It's more like the provide renewable and consistent growth industry. So that is much bigger than just solve some problem. We talk a lot about the climate change, control the carbon emission, big topic. From an execution perspective, it's really, I think in China, focus on the two things, created the clean electricity, as well as the provided electricity car. So those are the two big things right now.
And you also mentioned the distribution. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. It's one thing to create this energy, but you have to attach it to something, you have to distribute it somewhere.
That's right. So in China, China has the largest solar and wind turbine and companies in the world. But unfortunately, in the eastern area, that's a pretty like the crowd. So there's so many people living in the eastern area. But in the western, that's pretty good to have the bigger solar place to get installed and a lot of the wind turbine installed. So a lot of the renewable energy from the west area. So that's triggered a big problem. They have to how to translate the electricity from the western side to the eastern side. So that's a trigger a lot of the new technology. I think that's pretty much new in the world. Nobody have such problems before. So, and also trigger another big industry that's called energy storage. So right now in China, private market, like a VCPE, that's so hot for the energy storage companies. They get a much higher PE than ever before. And this is pretty much like the 10 years ago internet companies. So people, investors, no matter domestic and international, they all put in this area.
Yeah,
From
before we get to those ETFs that are listed in China, let's talk about those who know me know that I don't love McKinsey, but McKinsey came out with this handy little chart, which is where are the opportunities for new technology and clean energy in the next decade or 2 decades or so. And they have these 5 areas: electrification, which we all know, this is electric cars. We have agricultural, which is a very interesting topic, power grid, hydrogen, and carbon capture. So while we're talking a lot about this in a generic sense, there are some very specific things that we can talk about. And maybe we can mention these 2 ETFs, peng.guo.
That's right. I think in China capital market, that's the 2 ETF they call the renewable car or new energy car ETF. Another one is the solar ETF. So those 2 areas, this is a growth pretty much more than 30%, 50% in the past 2 years. And from the monthly chart, you can see they just keep growth consistently for a couple of years.
Yeah, we'll put a chart up of that. So the one is a Ping.An in English. It's a Ping.An CSI New Energy Auto ETF. And the other one is this Huatai Pine Bridge Photovoltaic Industry ETF. I wanted to jump in real quick to compare these 2 ETFs with the US listed ETFs of TAN, which is the solar ETF, and ICLN, which is the clean energy ETF. Both of those ETFs are down year to date, whereas the China listed ETFs related to these themes are up about 50% year to date. And again, those are A shares, China listed stocks. So that's, again, what we've been talking about, this same theme week after week after week. If you're going to own China stocks, own mainland shares.
That's true. So right now, people just realize white one not solve all the problem. They have to allocate the asset to the new tech and the new energy for the future.
Yeah, we mentioned electric cars, but it does seem like an obvious answer, but perhaps it's not the manufacturers themselves. The fact that there's probably already too many electric vehicle makers in China, more than 30. Not all of them are going to make it, obviously, but who will supply them all that tech? Who will supply the batteries, the infrastructure, the charging stations? All of that technology is investable, and that ETF has some of those kinds of stocks in it. The second area that's quite near and dear to me is the agricultural changes. And here's a bit of perspective. If you look at meat consumption in kilogram per person per year in the US, China, and I also added India. As we know, the Americans are pretty much overfed, and China is definitely catching up. But if China is going to equal the US level of consumption per person per year, the world is going to have to add 8 times as many animals per year to process. Or we're going to see a lot more vegetarians if you look at India. Either way, there are plenty of investment themes. And quite frankly, in China, there's a long history of meat substitutes. And there have been restaurants for many years. Yeah, this is Gongdelin. When I first moved to Shanghai, we went to Gongdelin every week. So, there are plenty of places that cater to a meatless or meat substitute diet.
I totally agree. So this is another huge topic. Pretty exciting news is for China. They get a huge improvement for to add the forest. So that's from the satellite pictures. So it can increase the property size like the Amazon, a new Amazon in China. So that is good news. And also, you are right. The meat consumption and trigger a lot of the climate-related problem, as well as and other problem. I agree. People don't necessarily consume so much meat. Yeah, they definitely can. And not 100% of vegetarian, at least they can add much more vegetables, which is good for the health.
Yeah, the interesting thing is you mentioned is planting trees is one thing, but the big fight is going to be over clean water. If you want to grow if you want to grow animals, it takes a lot more water than it is to
exactly. Yeah,
grow
water is
soybean.
water is
commodity.
a huge problem. I think right now.
Water is going to be the big fight.
Yeah, so that is why so much new technology can imply that to do the water pollutions management. I see like some they put like the solo plastic on the top of the water, which is help to clean the water or reduce the damage of the water. So that looks like many new technologies could be used into the water area.
Absolutely, and I think this is what we're here to show people is it's not just buy and hold. It's look at themes. These are emerging. Look at themes from a policy perspective, and then the trickle down effect for how entrepreneurs are going to react to that policy. Because like we said, yeah, China's the biggest polluter on the planet, but they're also doing the most to combat that pollution. And I think all of those stocks, all of those themes are going to play well over the next decade. I mean, you might be a little bit late on the EV trade, but there are many, many more trades and many more long-term investments to be looked at.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to live in a low carbon life. Whatever you consume every day, and that is all consume the water, energy, as well as add some damage to our Earth. So
correct.
We have to reduce it. Whatever manufactured, and sooner or later, durable goods or descriptionable goods, that they will sooner or later become a garbage. So we have to need to reduce our consumption.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to leave it at that this week. We're going to put up those charts for those ETFs so people can take a look and evaluate them on their own. Appreciate everybody being here. Make sure you subscribe and drop us a note if there are any questions.
Thank you.